It's a powerful day to be sitting here with you. El Toro's birthday.
And I got to meet my niece yesterday.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
What was that like?
Yeah. It was great. She was born on the 11th. Interesting is her name's Leo Anna. And your guys' granddaughter, right? Our grandson, Leo.
Yeah.
You have a grandson named Leo.
Yeah.
And Morgan's son was born on the 11th.
Yep.
Which is when Leo came into the world.
4/11.
Yeah. So some parallels.
What's her name?
Her name's Leo Anna.
Leo
which,
Anna.
Yeah, it means fierce warrior.
Fierce warrior. Leo Anna.
Yeah.
Fierce warrioress. Yeah. Let's see. We got 22 people in the house. We got our beloved, beautiful, brave brother, Miguel Mejia is in the house. And El Toro is in the background. I'm going to play a quick piece by Michael, and then we'll come back.
Stars spiraling from water to sky, bones to dust, dawn to dusk, man to mastodon, butterflies chasing the light of time back into empty space. The ocean splits as the blood of love bleeds from the soul of creation. Moses appears. He never left. As we move back into the dark, we remember that we have always been the light.
That's Brother Michael and Brother Israel doing their magic. So Michael's in the house. He's been in silence with his family and for all this year. And welcome back. And it's good to see you. I know we've talked privately, but it's good to see you back. It's good to feel your energy.
Wow, it's good to be with you too, brother, and everyone. I'm seeing all of the friends, the family. Yeah, it's just been a sabbatical. My mom transitioned. You know this 3 months ago, and so yeah, it's been a journey, but just decided to connect with you. You wrote a beautiful poem, and you sent it to me. And the poem really resonated, and it really captured just the sentiments of my journey and where I'm at. And I read a quote the other day, and it said, "But what is grief if not love persevering?" And so I feel like that quote kind of encapsulates this, my journey, my parents, or my dad, my siblings, my family, and her friends, and then just how it's really a micro reflection of this collective grief. And you and I talked about that too, the collective grief, which is this metaphorical death. So I just think for me, the theme has been grief, whether it's the soul's longing to move back into unison with the spirit, and then the boy's longing to hold his mother and to see her and to look in her eyes and, you know, kiss her forehead. But I think that if you could, I would love for you to read that poem, because it kind of set off a lot in me the last few days.
Okay. That was a pretty deep explanation. Okay. It's called The Path of the Human. Fear is no match for pain. Grief is the elixir of fearlessness. Pain is what forges the heart until it can't love anymore. Pain is what merges the heart until it can't hate anymore, as they become one. Pain is not eternal to the soul, but soul is eternal to pain. It holds space ad infinitum for all suffering and all causes. Sovereignty comes from suffering until suffering is no more. The fire of fear will always fan the flames of fearlessness until fear is no more. We fucking got this. I forgot that last part was in there. But obviously I was feeling it, and I told you when I came into the studio that night, your mom was present, and then you were present, and I kind of had been stuck, you know, creatively as far as writing goes for the last couple of years. I mean, I really hadn't got a role going, and so some kind of new collaborative code came out, and it was kind of cool. But yeah, I really got it, and when we connected, I got it. You know, I mean, it was like a looking in a mirror, or you know, however you want to say it. But and then, of course, the connection to, like you said, the collective grief.
Yeah, that when you sent me the poem, that line, fear is no match for pain. Yeah, that line pierced, penetrated directly to my soul, because it's and I told you this, it's when you face your greatest fear. And for me, since I was a young boy, my greatest fear was to lose my mother, like physically lose her. And she was immunocompromised. She had lupus and a bunch of different autoimmune illnesses since before I was even born. And I've even been exploring that because in the back of the head, I remember the very first time I became cognizant of the fact that she was, you know, delicate when I was younger. Like, she's vulnerable. Like, you know, we're all vulnerable, and we could all leave at any moment. But once you start to experience it, right, it takes on a new meaning. And I remember when I was a young boy and I finally understood that, and I understood what she was going through. There were times she was hospitalized off and on. I asked her, "Mom, are you going to die? Like, am I going to lose you?" And then she was just like, "Well, everyone dies, son. But yeah, this will probably be, you know, the instrument that leads me back." And I must have been, I don't know, 4 or 5. So yeah, we all contracted COVID in like early December, I think it was. And all of us were able to move through it. But because of her comorbidities, it literally just completely moved through her body and shut down each organ. And we watched it, like we witnessed it. We were there. Well, basically, she was suffocating to death in front of me. And it was really like, it was a disorienting experience, because the poetry is emblematic of the deathless state. Like, we are eternal. But all of a sudden this pillar, right, the most significant force in my life, was getting ready to move back into the arms of the eternal. And it was interesting because I really felt like it completely moved into every part of me that is still wounded, every part of me that's still grieving the eternal. So instantly, you just lose your foundation, your footing. And it's been challenging, but how I kind of view it is being impaled by the knife of God, right? I think that grief is, when honored, I think it's one of the most, if not the most prolific instrument of purification. And something that I've been thinking about is that, we're not learning, we're just remembering. And so it's hard to hold this paradox of when my mom was taking her last breaths, this paradox of deep down inside, I knew it was, and I told you this, it was her final bestowment upon all of us. And as torturing as it has felt, I've really seen everyone that she's touched. I've seen her love move through every heart and just penetrate and lift thousands of veils at once.
Now you can feel it. Has there been, this happening during this time period, this first 3 months of 2021, mind blowing. And to be paralleling that at such a concentrated point, with family, was there a lot of silence? Did y'all spend a lot of time in silence? I'm just curious, it seems like a lot of people are pulling them, some people call it pulling your aspects in, or just, being alone in solitude. I know there's been a lot of that going on for me, Morgan.
Yeah, definitely. I think that all of us, I think, just for the purpose of self-preservation, there was a movement into ourselves, a deep movement. And really, like, we would all be together, but yeah, there wasn't a lot of communication. It was more just holding each other. Even now, like, I find that, and I've said this to a couple of my friends, that, our tears are far more eloquent, just looking deep into someone's eyes and seeing their story. You can see them, you can feel them. And I think that, the difference between silence and stillness is something that I've really been contemplating, because stillness is literally the pulse from which everything moves forward into the physical. It's atemporal, it's eternal, right? You could call it the heart of God. And silence isn't, a prerequisite. If anything, I've seen that, like, if you look at the external pandemonium and how loud everything is, and it seems like, the disequilibrium creates this discordance. But I think, like, when you look out, what I've seen is that external chaos is just mirroring the psyche and the emotional body of each individual as we move through this purge. So for me, it's, I remember there were times, like, especially like when the poetry would come in, or I'd write, or I would connect with people, that I thought I needed everything quiet, right? Like, even if we think we're going to go into meditation, like, I need everything quiet. I need the lights off. But what I'm starting to learn is that I'm piercing the heartbeat of stillness when my mind is completely unraveling and my heart is bleeding. Like, I'm in the loudest place within myself as I'm moving towards this corridor we call stillness or spirit. So yeah, there's definitely been a lot of solitude and really just understanding that the more I release, I mean, the last 3 months, like, even, right when we started, I've been immersed in a puddle of tears, but it's really feeling all of the pain, right? All of the hurt moving through the eyes, purifying the body, but also understanding, deeply understanding just where the dichotomous state lives inside of our minds and inside of our hearts. So in knowing that my mother's eternal, and to the core, my mother is literally me, and you can never lose that. So in this physical separation, or the veil of this physical separation, the tears are bringing down this mental and emotional division. And then there's this merging, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does make sense. It's like the way you explain it. It's like, really, anything outside of us that's not cool is, I guess, for so many words, a signal to make peace with it inside of us, because it's inside of us,
Right.
And it's outside of us, or we wouldn't be seeing it. You can't blame it on everybody else. If it's not if it's not inside you, you ain't going to be seeing it. But yeah, I get what you're saying. Totally. It's like I told you when we talked about the poem, and I told you I never did this before, and I was like, I'm just going to lay down. And I wasn't like, oh, I'm going to love grief or embrace grief. It wasn't like that. I just said, hey, I just take me. And a couple hours of that, and I came out and wrote that. So I'm with you. I think it's, for me, up to this day, as of a week ago, it's the most powerful catalytic experience I've ever had, which gives me great respect for grief.
Yeah. Yeah, it's what you said. And yeah, you said that on our phone conversation, and that stood out to me, which was, I think there's a specific moment when we're progressing back into the spirit, where we begin to see and witness the trioptic experience of where the psyche and the emotional body are literally perceiving reality from different dimensions. So it's like the conscious mind, the divine masculine, right? Which is identity, attachment, the personality, right? And then you have the subconscious mind, the soul, right? And the many facets that have been created in the temporal and spatial. And then what we see emerging is the superconscious, the oversoul, right? The atemporal, the eternal heart. And it's been interesting because, so like when the poetry reveals itself, when it enters, when it emerges, it's coming from a superconscious state. And I think that this collective grief, if we're able to just stay silent long enough inside of ourselves, we start seeing these different minds, right? Like we see the conscious mind, the subconscious is a bridge, right? So what we call the divine feminine and the conscious mind, the masculine, when these two aspects emerge, this bridge connects us to the spirit, the super conscious. And so what's been fascinating for me is that I feel like the unraveling's accelerated. So like for me, grief is showing me all these different aspects of myself in a really loud way. So it's like I'll be laying down and the grief is literally consuming my breath, where I'm literally at times gasping for air. And in those moments, like I said earlier, I feel the young boy that feels like he'll never see his mother again. And then if I go to speak from that energy, if that energy starts to move up as sensation, emotion, stagnant emotion, and starts to formulate thought, and I speak that out like, this isn't fair. Why did this happen? She left too soon. Immediately, this other state, right? Like the oversoul, I can feel it. I can feel the movement of it going, no, the universe is inerrant. It's infallible. You know, and I think you and I talked about that a couple of months ago, where like right when I release something, knowing that for me, and I think there's so many nuances to this, but like my relationship with how I perceive COVID, it's really multifaceted for me, just, you know, in terms of the experiential, right? So it's like for me, knowing that my mom's soul was ready to move back into the eternal, and knowing that this was just the vessel for that movement. So I think when I'm looking and I'm trying to tie this all in together, and but is when what I've really been witnessing outside is this collective grief. Like I really feel like I'm in conversation with my own grief as I'm watching this merge and watching, right, the soul and the spirit unite. And you wrote something this morning, whether you've been a god or you've been this or right, everything I'm saying actually kind of was ignited by that post. And it's because what's fascinating is basically to just watch everything that was created in time and space inside and outside of us collapse.
Yeah. 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 And what you said earlier about the difference between silence and stillness. And you said you could, you know, you're basically chasing the stillness, and there's all this, you know, all these streams around you and all this, you know, chatter and all this stuff happening. And I just picture like, you know, you're watching a movie and it starts speeding up and the music speeds up and all of a sudden you're just in a void.
Yeah.
Right. And there's a certain element of that going on too, I think, like the speed of transformation, maybe.
Yeah. Well, actually, what you just said in 2 sentences was perfect, and what I was trying to communicate. That's exactly. No,
I do that all the time.
No,
Don't worry about that. I mean the other way around.
No, that was literally, that was it. That was perfect. That's what I'm trying to, right? Like it's like watching this big orchestration, you know, and you have like the soloists, the aria, right? The instrumentalists, but you're just literally watching like each instrument come in, and each instrument's creating this mosaic that's constantly expanding. And you talked about this on our phone call, is right, to be able to hold the contraction and expansion all at once.
Yeah.
Right. The death and the birth at the same time. I know Maureen Moss wrote something really touching last night about how courageous it is for us to meet the mercy of death and the birth of life, something like that, all at once. And yeah, I think that it's what you said. It's just kind of watching it all play out, and and just kind of really truly trying to surrender to it.
Yeah. It's almost like a mindless place, though. It's like the download, activation, integration all happen at one time. And I'm just like, I get up every day and I just say to myself, I don't know anything. But there's something innate that's happening. It's like an instinct or an intuition, and you're part of it. Or at least from my perspective, I'm like, oh, man, I'm a part of this. I mean, there's something going on with the birds and the trees, and I mean, there's something happening. And so there seems to be a little more clarity. And then you might get a rush. I mean, there's just a lot of different kind of energy going on.
Yeah.
But I mean, I know you've got a tight circle, but I mean, do you see people getting like deeper within themselves?
Oh yeah. Yeah. I see that from everybody. I think I actually was exploring that last night, because most of the people I'm closest to, everyone's moved into this state where no one really wants to interact. Right? Being on a phone call for too long is just a little challenging now.
Right.
And what I found for myself along, right, because I have the facet of grief, and then I'm mourning. But I also think that what's happening is, I actually have a quote here from Gabriella Young sent me this, and it's a quote from Rumi, and I think this will speak to that. In the mouth of the beloved, speech is a jewel.
God.
Yeah, Rumi. Man.
Man, that's some sexy soul stuff, man.
Yeah.
In the mouth of the beloved, speech is
a jewel.
Is a jewel.
So it's like
yeah. Go ahead.
No, yeah. When I think that quote for me speaks to what you're touching on, which is our brains, right? Literally are really truly being rewired.
Yeah.
So like everything that's been stored in the subconscious is being transmuted. So we used to move in the physical reality, and we would create and recycle conditioned concepts. So what's happening is, all of those facets you quoted earlier when you talked about if you've been this, if you've been that, we're literally moving from an insular, right, individualized perspective back into the panoptic.
Yeah.
Right. So we're now piercing time and space and seeing from the eye of God. And I think the reason why everyone is going into silence is because the stillness is starting to pierce the heart, and we're learning how to communicate and create from the deathless state, right? Like the eternal. So what I mean by that is, if for so long, in order to keep the old paradigm grounded, right, the dichotomous state, the ego would store energy, thought, and as it would store this energy, it would just continue to regurgitate its experiences. This is where we see karmic looping.
Yeah.
And we would create with our pain. But now we've kind of reached this state, like it's almost, I want to say like this chrysalis state, where we're literally learning how to create as love rather than from the dismembered state of duality. So I think that what I'm starting to witness is everyone's craving this quiet, because the truth is metaphorically, we've all been placed in this womb. And we're learning how to think in a new way. And when you think in a way, you speak and act in a new way.
Mm-hmm.
So I really feel like that quote, I think, is elucidating what's coming next, which is in the, what is it? The speech, in the mouth of God, speech is a jewel.
In the mouth of God, speech is a jewel. And with what you just said after it too, to me, it's like as a metaphor for, energetic metaphor for everything, because everything is expanding. Everything. The distortion's louder, the truth is louder, and we know which way we're headed. But a jewel in the mouth of God, right? It's the sacredness of speech. See, everything's gotten distorted. Speech is distorted. What's happening to the masculine energy? It's getting quieter. What's happening to the collective? You know what I mean? I mean, you're in the mouth of God, and to speak is a jewel. That is a stargate. To your point, this is what we're stepping into.
Yes. Yeah. And I think when the brain becomes rewired and when the heart has bled enough and it becomes sensible again, and it starts to feel the intrinsic, right? The intrinsic, which is itself, the spirit, when it starts to feel again, to speak without having anything to truly say, it literally is, well, it's disorienting, and our physical body has a response to it. It's actually, you can't formulate thought when you're becoming a channel, like I said, for the panoptic. You can't formulate thought if you're not being called in the now to release something into the physical. There's another quote, and I just have to give Gabriella Young, she's an exquisite soul. I have to give her credit for a lot of this because she's recommended some of these books and I'm reading them right now. And so I'm reading the poet, I think German poet, Rilke. And there's one of the lines in one of his poems, and this goes back to what you said too, is, I want to be with people who know secret things or else alone. And I think that what he was speaking to was when we move deep enough into ourselves, this distorted desire where desire becomes multifarious and desire longs only through the senses. When desire moves back into the antecedent, or when it moves back into where it was originally created, then desire is one, right? And that one desire lives in all of us, and that desire is the deep longing to be whole. And so I think like even that quote is like, as we move into ourselves, we long to be around those who are also birthing, if we relate or connect to the external, because anything else kind of brings about that nebulous state of feeling disconnected. You feel more isolated, right? Have you ever been around a group full of people and you feel more alone?
Yeah. I used to write about it back in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. You can be alone, amongst 100 people. You can be alone. I mean, that's like, kind of in the classification of what you were talking about with stillness, the difference between stillness and silence. I mean, and again, here we go with the metaphor. You're in a crowd of 100 people and it's loud and there's all this energy. And then the abyss appears. Yeah. I think the other thing that's happening is we're giving as much or more credence to the to the flip side of the coin, or the flip side of possibility or magic or potential. We're not just mired in, look what we did, man, look what we created here. We're like, look, look at the beauty of that. We just learned we can create something, and people applying it in communities like this.
Yeah, you're right. And I think when you talk about this, right, like I think it was Carl Jung, he always talked about synchronicity is always ever present for those who have eyes to see.
Yeah.
And I think that those eyes, they begin to awaken the more we honor the movement of our pain. Like you said, it's not, when we embrace pain and we become consumed by it, it doesn't mean it feels good. It just means we're starting to accept what's in front of us. And the acceptance in itself holds a mystical quality, and it starts to burn invisibly. It starts to burn the subconscious, and it starts to burn whatever's whatever's in the heart.
Yeah, that's a beautiful description, man. That's a beautiful description, what you just said. That's what I was trying to say. And now, and then I hear something like this. When I said, so it's like grief exhausts all the love in you, and grief exhausts all the hate in you, until your conception of what love is and hate is, it's eradicated. It's like there is no love, there is no hate, and that's that point that you're talking about, where that fire comes in. And what did you just say? You said something like, and this is what you're stepping into. It's mysterious, and it's got this incredible kind of primordial power. Like you're going, oh my God, I can do this. Well, I'm going to do it. You're past, I go, I guess I'm doing it. You're doing it. And you start to get, I don't know, to me, like a higher level of clarity.
Yeah.
And confidence.
Yeah. And it's that, what you talked about. I wanted to share this story. My mom, she transitioned 2 days before my birthday. And I think I might have shared this with you privately, but she transitioned 2 days before my birthday. And I love sleeping. So I always would go to sleep really early. But when I'd wake up in the middle of the night, I would look over at my phone, because she would always text me right at midnight. And I didn't sleep for weeks after she transitioned. And I remember I was so broken and so disturbed, because I'm like, I'm not going to get that message ever again. And so at about 11:59, I was just like, I need to distract myself for a moment, because I was just in tears. So I jumped on Facebook, which I rarely scroll, but I jumped on. I'm like, I'm going to scroll and just check out how everyone's doing. And right when I jumped on Facebook, her little the top bar shows you who's active.
Mm-hmm.
Her icon was the very first one active at midnight. Dude. So I run into my dad's room, and I'm like, are you on mom's phone? And he's like, no. And all of a sudden I just start crying, and I'm like, Mom, you're the first person to say happy birthday to me. And so, like, when you were talking about this element of mysticism, right? And we talk about when the timeless state starts to anchor inside the avatar, in the body, all of a sudden we gain access to the invisible in new ways.
Yeah.
And we're all experiencing our spiritual faculties start to, what was once dormant, they're starting to become active. And we're just learning, right? Yeah. We're literally we're little children learning how to latch on right now. Like, what is this? right? I mean, our ability, like before, our empathy, like we could kind of go like, what did you mean by that? Now we don't need any translation. The moment we're speaking to someone, vibrationally, intention moves into our heart's interpreting the frequency. Our heart sends signals to the brain. Our brain creates thought to describe the energetic transmission it just had. So it's like our empathy is extra heightened. We're starting to see, another big one for me has been abundance, the reframing of abundance. And you, I feel like have about mastered this, how things just show up for you. And you and I've talked about this, like right before in the old paradigm, we had conceptualized what it meant to manifest. And I think manifestation was like, I'm going to say like, I need $1 million, $1 million. I'm manifesting $1 million, whatever it is. I'm manifesting true love, my soulmate. What I'm starting to see is that the deeper we fall into the heart, we get to experience the spirit. And the spirit is in complete alignment with the universe. And from there, abundance is the law that when you are conjoined with the eternal, it's what you need shows up. So all of a sudden, abundance is that 25 cents that you just, you were short, and it's to the right of you on the street, right? Abundance is the poem that your friend sends you about grief when you're suffocating on your pain. All of a sudden, abundance is you're living in your spirit, and the spirit is able to access everything it needs to endure and eventually thrive.
It's a true expansion, right? I mean, it's a true expansion when you get to that point and you realize everything's gone energetically and sometimes otherwise. Everything's gone, absolutely everything. The more the better. And you're standing there and spirit's still there, and all the other aspects have surrendered and died and whatever. And then you realize to another level how powerful you are, or at least you're aware that you've become something greater than you were. It's just happening fast, though.
Yeah.
It's work, though, isn't it?
Yeah. I think that there's moments where, I mean, if we're in touch with the transformation, there's moments it feels insurmountable. It is isolating, and giving yourself over to the pain is wordless, right? It's unfathomable because, like you said, it's a fire. And everything just starts to burn off. But what's interesting about everything burning off is that before it can burn, it first must reappear.
Say it again.
I'm saying before everything that's burning off, before it can burn away, it must first reappear.
Yes.
So all of a sudden, it's the state of, this sensation that's arising from the heart, this wound that's opening again. This wound was the little boy who was afraid to lose his mom. This wound was the boy who almost died because he had a brain injury. This, right? And then this little interval, which is infinity, this little interval, this still point before the next thought forms, starts to expand. And instead of latching on to those thoughts and turning them into language, which casts spells and create realities, we're starting to stay in the interval. And I think that's why a lot of us are quiet too.
Yeah.
maybe we're not manifesting something in the physical yet, but vibrationally the collective is in course for movement, because when you stay in the interval, the form's expanding, so the collective's expanding.
Yeah.
And I think that's why a lot of us are craving that silence or that stillness.
Well, it's a lifestyle adjustment too. You know, I mean, everything's literally moving at a different frequency when you're there. And even though it might seem like there's a lull, let's say in creativity or constructing things, or that's a space that has greater manifestation, raw material, to work from. So there's a lot of things that are coming into our lives that are nothing like they were. You know what I mean? I mean, there's a lot more evidence than just the Mandela Effect and stuff like that. I mean, people are having, even your phone, that thing with your phone on your birthday. I mean, it's like commonplace today. And the truth is, it's probably been going on all along.
Yeah, we were just too blocked to see. Yeah, and you're right. And right when I saw it, so my dad was like, "Yeah, no, I'm not on her phone." I saw her phone was off, and then so I clicked out of my Facebook, clicked back in, and it was gone. So she had just shown up right there at midnight for me. And there's been just a lot of ways. And you're right that I think that, Israel always talks about this, how we're just moving out of the conceptual mind, and how before it's just like, yes, the sun is there, the stars are perfectly aligned, this affects the ocean tide. And he's like, why do we say that devoid of complete, being completely in awe? Like this is astonishing, a suspended ball of fire. And even how the sun and the moon, the sun itself, a lot of us, when the Kundalini became activated and started moving through all the different chakras, a lot of us had to stay out of the sun for a while because we weren't used to, the plasma and the sunbursts and everything that was happening, and like just starting to understand that we've always been inextricably connected, because everything is a fractal aspect of us. But now to be activated in a way where we actually feel it, we're not just saying it.
Mm-hmm.
So then you feel the collective grief, right? Like how are you, and you helped me with this a few months ago, how are we perceiving the collective upheaval, the collective bedlam? Like the chaos, like what's our perception of it? Because if your perception is judgment, you're really showing yourself, if you're able to see how you don't hold yourself, how you're not holding your pain.
Yeah.
Because right now, when we start to move back into unison with the heart, you see the collective upheaval, and judgment is replaced with compassion right now. And it's understanding that everyone and everything is literally playing a perfect role right now. Like it can't be any other way. I think that if we're confused, it's because we have an expectation, and expectation is always going to find that it's been derived in thought, and thought's what's being eradicated and transformed so we can experience the spirit.
Yeah.
So it's like, what's perceiving chaos? Because neutrally, the universe just sees its hand at work.
That's right. And then we're here, and it's got the human element, but there's and we know, excuse me, we know that I am soul, I am that. But I think there's a part of what's shifted is the I kind of frequency to the me. Like when you talk about the judgment, that's going away, it's in the compassion for others. It's happening first with ourselves.
Yeah.
So there's the me is the we. You ever see that meme and it says we and then it's got like a mirror image beneath it and it's we me? It's like
No.
that. It's
Yeah.
like the me is the we. It really is. The I and the me is the we, which is the I am.
Yeah.
Let's make up a
Yeah.
rap. Okay.
No, and yeah, with what you said too, it's like, and you said that. I mean, I've repeated this a million times, but I don't think this could be overstated because when we look at where we're at as a collective organism, we need to keep putting this out there, which is whenever you begin to view yourself as separate from anything outside of you, you're the point of separation. And you
That's
said,
right. That's right.
I like every time I move into a wound and I feel separate, or I feel like I'm a victim, or this isn't fair, immediately I'm like, oh, I've moved into a state of separation.
Mm-hmm.
So in this moment, what I'm not being called to do is to feed the illusion and to create with the thought pattern that's really that's just come up to be understood and dissolved.
Yeah.
Instead, I'm meant to become aware that I'm the point of separation in the universe in this moment.
Okay. So this is where the rubber meets the road and everything is relevant. You know, there's so many geniuses around the world and there's so many incredible people that have downloaded sacred wisdom and modalities and just all kinds of stuff, abilities to channel and heal and so on, you know, but this is where the rubber meets the road. It's where I don't know how, you know, we can do something. I know we can do anything, but there's something about the human being conscious to embody the frequency of what it has become aware of, being it, walking the talk, you know, energetically and always walking the talk with what it's been shown, because everybody's being shown more and more every day of our multidimensionality, right? So it's, to me, like, how do you, I guess what I'm describing is embodiment, and you're like taking it right down to the core.
Yeah. What do you know, there was this, I read this, and what do you feel about this? I read this quote, or it was a question, and it said, where does your motivation come from when it's no longer coming from and for yourself?
Where does your motivation come from when it's no longer coming for and from
Yourself. So it's talking about the decomposition of
yeah
the ego, right?
yeah
So when you're no longer in service of, there's no longer ambition
yeah
for building the illusion of yourself,
yeah
now where do you create from, and what does motivation look like from that state?
yeah what is your inspiration? What is your inspiration? That's a great question.
Yeah, right, because
It,
I've been reading about like egoistic altruism, right? So like coming under the guise of being altruistic,
hmm,
like, right, like I'm here for humanity, but unconsciously that's another iteration of the self which is dying, because really you're still moving from a state in which you're siphoning energy,
hmm,
right? Your external makeup is a fabrication of the fine weaving of an individual that is no longer able to exist in form. So it's like, when I'm out here and I'm creating, am I creating because I don't feel alive and I want to feel, so I'm pulling from outside of me? Or am I creating because I feel full? And in that fullness, this light is just starting to spill over.
I like that. I like that.
So I think for me, like there's, especially in the last few months, another primary reason I've been quiet is there's been times I've felt so alone. I've wanted to connect. Oh, maybe I'll jump on with Todd or Melissa, one of my good friends. Maybe I'll talk about this. But inside, I could feel right now you're being called to look into the eye of separation, into the eye of pain, and to feel. And right now, the greatest thing you could do for yourself, the greatest gift you could give yourself is the courage to pierce that eye, to be with it. And so in that, when we feel this energy start to reach transfiguration, inspiration just becomes gnosis. Right?
Inspiration is the expression.
It's the expression.
Inspiration, the expression become one, right?
The poem just shows up.
Yeah.
The words just come.
The colors, the vibration, the frequencies, the experience.
Yeah.
This is the real remembrance. It really is. And the only impediments are from this old paradigm, or from duality. This is a head game now. And I don't mean it's not in the heart. I just mean to put it in like street vernacular. It's right here. It's you go for it. And I think that's what you're seeing too. You're seeing a lot of people go for it.
Yeah.
But it looks a lot different. There's many ways that it looks, I guess that's what I'm saying. A lot of different circumstances, situations. But to me, I mean, like in the last, I don't know, that 30 days from 10th of March to 10th of April was the most incredible, intense period. And we connected, and everything was synchronistic and sequential. It made sense. It was deep. It was hard. It was impressive. It was powerful. It was, there was some grief. There was all these things. But now this energy feels like truth. Like, where would truth be at its strongest? From our own truth in ourselves, right? Is that what we're doing? Are we finding our truth? All of us.
Yeah.
How many people are getting to the point where they're like, I don't care what people think of me. I'm going to do me. And I'm not going to be ashamed about it. And that's sovereignty. And you know what? As a human work in process, we can, we can err. That's the ebb and flow. If we were like a rocket ship, this wouldn't be any fun. The journey would be over before it started.
Yeah. Yeah. It's something too that another big core theme, and Morgan wrote about this a couple of weeks ago, is the death of force.
Mm-hmm.
That's been a big one I've seen because, and I'm sure a lot of people have to be experiencing this. When we're purging and integrating, right, and energies moving inside and the receptacles transforming, something I feel is like my brain is inoperable in those moments. So I can't tell you how many times, like when you talk about the contraction and the expansion simultaneous,
Mm-hmm.
in those moments, all I can do is feel these energies, because I'll try to speak to Israel and I can't, every other word I don't remember. Like, it's like my brain, right? Because
I know what you mean.
Like,
Morgan just said that to me a while ago. She was like, I said something to her, and it was like 15 seconds later, and she goes, something about what I said. And I said, what? She asked, you don't remember what you said? I said, no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And that's a sign. That's something that's happening to a lot of people right now. And it's a sign of, like I talked about earlier, moving out of the conceptual realm, right? Where everything is object consciousness and now becoming empty.
Yeah.
But in that emptiness, the brain's functioning in a new way.
Yeah.
Right? Before, when the subconscious stored, right? And it's not like our memories are being extracted. Like, right, I still remember my mom transition. I still remember that when I was a young boy, I got beat up by young kids. So that isn't being extracted. What's being extracted is the stagnant emotion and thought around the experiences. So the brain is now clear. It's still a storehouse for everything that the subconscious has experienced, but now without judgment or without stagnant energy. So in that, like I'll be talking to Israel and I'll literally forget my next word. Like I'll be like, and easy words like, hey, what is it called when you, and he'll be like, schemes. And I'm like, what's that word? And he's like, look at me. And I'm like, my brain's just not working today. And, but so I've seen this, like, and going back to force, this theme of force is before, oh my God. And it was brilliant. And I mean, Morgan would communicate this well, but when she's talking about the balancing of the giver and the taker.
Yeah.
Traditionally within this form and how it's meet the world, I've been a yes man and someone who just always gives. And I loved what she wrote about because the overgiver and the overtaker, one role isn't more or less significant than the other, and one isn't to be frowned upon, right? Like the overgiver isn't more noble and the overtaker, less sacred. It's literally just in understanding that from both of these states, we had lost our balance, we had lost our center. And in that, we were always over giving because we wanted to be accepted and loved, which is trying to illuminate that we are separate from ourselves.
Yeah.
And the overtaker is gaining a sense of self and superiority and also siphoning energy by moving into a state of privilege, right? Or feeling superior. And so I think that's another big one I see, like just these veils of force are completely dying, and where in that we're more able to allow people, like even like if you say no, right? In the past, I didn't like saying no because I didn't want to feel the energy that would come after I said no. Right. Like I didn't want to feel someone disappointed or unworthy of their affection now. But now, as we move into ourselves and as we become balanced, we realize that in that sacred no, right, we're also allowing them to work through whatever energy's triggered for them in that moment.
Yeah.
And that's a sacred process. And we're moving through ours. So I think force has been a big one. I've said no more in the last 3 months than I have in 35 years of life.
The sacred no is saying yes to me.
Yeah.
That's what it is.
Yeah. I wanted to share a poem with you.
Right on.
This is yeah. Desert winds, your heart, a buried rose. Seraphims, stories that have never been told. Be bold. You are beautiful, and time is your clay. Let this day become immortalized by the longing of your soul. Reach into the dark, for love abides in the riddle of pain, and the light the light of the unknown has sworn an oath to your suffering. Endure as each petal soars into the night, and know that you are loved.
Jesus. Who wrote that?
That came through my heart.
You wrote that?
Yeah.
You just wrote that?
That one was a couple weeks ago. Yeah.
Well, that's what I mean in this time period, because I thought it at the very beginning, but it's such a different, I mean, like your stuff that I've seen and experienced through you reading it and on video, it's very intense. It's a deep, heart penetrating intensity what y'all put together. But that one, it's softer.
Mm.
It's just as deep, right? And deeper, but it's softer. It's, I don't know. It's got a motherly quality to it.
Yeah. Yeah. And I think it is a different octave, like the poem itself. And you're right. I think it's just something that can only become unbarred in the chains of pain. And I think that, like, when that poem came through, right, it was the voice was speaking to me, for me, but about everyone. And so I was the seraphim. I'm the one whose heart is unfurling. Right. And so it's like, right. And that, again, that's the oversoul and how we move in and out. What mind are we thinking with? And I love that. Be bold, you are beautiful, and time is your clay. I love that, the imagery for that, because it's like when my mom transitioned, one of the greatest lessons we've all learned is, my mother stayed at home. She was a stay-at-home mother. And hundreds of people sending private messages and writing. And when you talk about the human is the hero, and you always talk about we have to walk our talk. One of the reasons I've always felt so comfortable with you is because of your authenticity. And that's paralleled in my mother. My mom was the most authentic person I'd ever known. You never had to decipher anything she was saying or feeling. She spoke in a straight line, and you feel like that to me. And so, I think that just understanding what's being revealed, taking our experiences, and they're breaking us, right? And you talked about this, and I agreed with you. Grief's showing up in a multitude of forms for all of us, whether it's a loss of a home, breaking up, becoming estranged from a friend or family. Like all of these are different elements of grief, which then are touching on the one universal grief, which is the longing for ourselves.
Yeah. Yeah. Grief is like what am I trying to say? It's beyond, grief is like a mortal insult to the human heart. I mean, I don't know how you can describe grief. And I'm so happy. I'm so happy to have tasted, walked into this space of what is on the other side of this grief. And I know if I'm doing it, you're doing it, your family's doing it, there's people doing it energetically. And that's what really I'm seeing more every day is actually not just knowing, but seeing the energy that this whole thing is, and the energy that I am in it, and the connections I have. And It's, you know, it's part of that new atmosphere that you were describing earlier.
Yeah. I like what you said. Grief is an insult to the human heart.
A mortal insult.
Mortal insult. Yeah,
it's because grief. I don't want to use that example. Grief is when people have faith quakes. It's when they cuss God. That's grief. It's beyond why me. It's a point where you've prayed and you've sinned and you've been a saint and the whole thing, and you're so raw in your conversation with the universe, and you still don't get an answer. That's fucking grief.
Yeah.
And it's part of all of our paths. But it's not even real. So if you want a big expansion, don't run from grief.
Well, something else that's interesting about that, right, is everything you said, I feel like it articulates the human's experience with the instrument of grief. Then as you start to move through the grief, holding the paradox that the spirit created a universal order and laws where it wanted to experience the veil, and it literally catalyzes grief to move back into itself.
Yeah.
So you're like, right, for the spirit, grief is the sacred bridge back to itself. So it's like, right, and if you start to experience both simultaneously, right, the cursing of it, and then that to the core, the deepest part of yourself created this instrument we call grief. That's when it starts to really.
Yeah. That's like prime creator territory, man. You know? Yeah. I mean, but if you think about it, right? We're, figuratively up there. And we are that which we are. And we say, whether it's entertainment, a university, or whatever the case is, there's 3 roller coasters set up. One is A long, one is A plus 2 long, and one is A plus 1,000,000 long. You have no idea what you're getting into when you get on this almost endless roller coaster, which is the third choice, and we'd all pick it. So I look at this experience as part of the awareness of this experience for me is what you just described, which was the complexity, the distortion, the contortion, the constrictions, the restrictions, all of that. What a beautiful, beautiful landscape for the spirit and the soul to flow. I mean, the amount of trust in what's been created to enhance our experience and the universal experience is that's love to me. That's faith. To know everything, to really, really find that place where you know everything is you. It's in you, or you wouldn't be seeing it. And it sounds simple, but I think it's actually being supported and pushed by this energy more and more every day. So we're all going to get there. We're already there. So is Israel going to make an appearance since it's his birthday?
Are you going to make an appearance?
El Toro. Is El Toro
He's sitting here.
come?
He's taking in your nectar. He's sitting here. He's like, no, I'm not coming on.
El Toro.
Yeah.
For those of you who don't speak Spanish, that means the bull. Israel is the bull. El Toro. So, yeah, man. Do you think you guys are going to come to Sedona for the Soulogy Fest?
Yeah, absolutely. It's it'll be the first time I've recited live in like over a year. So I'm really looking forward to it. And Sedona was my mom's favorite place, specifically Airport Mesa. And I think I told you that, but for years, that's where my family, we would go on vacation and we'd spend time in Sedona. So when you and Morgan reached out to me about the Soulogy Fest, I felt like that was my mom, especially because my sisters are like clairvoyant and clairaudient, and my mom's been going to them a lot and like, tell your brother to get out of his room and start reading some poetry. Like, she's like, she's like, so when you talked about, I'm like, oh, okay, Sedona, Airport Mesa, my mom, the energy, you, the love.
That's where you met Gabriella too, wasn't it?
Oh yeah. Yeah. Gabriella Young. Yes. She's been, and I've talked about this frequently, but she's one of my key holders. She was one of my initiators. When I met her, I was writing poetry, but I would keep it under my bed and I hadn't started reciting yet. And when I saw her for the first time, I was literally submerged in tears and I couldn't breathe, which isn't an experience I have often, but it was transrational. Everything was moving, and Israel reached over and he whispered to me and he was like, what's the matter with you, Michael? And I told him, I've done this a million times. Like, I've done this forever. And he's like, you've done what? And it was her voice. I knew her voice. I knew her heart. For anybody who hasn't experienced Gabriella Young, she's on Facebook. She has her website. Maybe someone can put it in the comments.
What is her website?
I think it's GabriellaYoung.love, I want to say. But she is just, honestly, Gabriella is one of the universe's best kept secrets, in my opinion, as far as she is an avatar that has reached a really deep state of consciousness. And her poetry isn't just illuminating, it will pull you back into the omnipotent. And like there's no choice. The vibrational frequency that she carries is a corridor. And so every time I speak to her, I'm forever changed. And she's been really, you, Morgan, Maureen, Melissa, Saskia, Marina, there's too many people to name. Everyone's just been so instrumental in my journey, walking with me through grief. And she sent me some essential oils. She sent me one she created for grief. So every morning I put that oil on and then I go sit outside until the sun goes down and I read and I write and I cry. And so Gabriella's energy is always with me. But yeah, she's amazing.
Yeah, she is amazing. She came on the show with me. It was very cool.
I need to see that still.
Yeah, it was very, very cool. It was a really cool show. And she's going to be at Soulogy Fest. I'm really excited to see her in person. And then y'all's energy together. And, with everything else. I mean, it's going to be, and with like 100 people, it's going to be a pretty intimate kind of thing over 3 days. You're going to get to know a lot of people.
Yeah. I really feel like it will be transformative because I know what's happened to me when I was just in Gabriella's presence, like Gabriella. And then when I was in yours and Morgan's presence a few months back, now you think of bringing you, Morgan, Franco, Gabriella. I mean, just too many to name, but all the same, right? All the same, moving from the same place in their heart. I really do know that. And we've talked about this a lot over the last 6 months. We're moving into a state of collaboration, right? Before, right? The ego and how its architecture it's afraid of collaboration in some sense, because either collaboration is serving them or they don't want to collaborate because they want an exaltation of self. But as we move back into the spirit, collaboration becomes a cornerstone, especially in the fabric of how the new paradigm is going to unfold. Because what the spirit knows is that each fractal of the spirit, when it's reaching or reached self-actualization, that the more fractals you bring together, the light just expands.
Yeah. Exponentially.
Yeah. And that's what I really feel is going to happen. Well, I know that's going to happen.
Well, absolutely. It's happening now. You can't get to 3 or 10 or 100 without going through 2. So you got connections being made 1-to-1. Then you have connections being made with 3, a triad. Then you have connections being made of 2 that are 1 and 2 that are 1. I mean, these are energetic connections that aren't separated. There's nothing to work against their separation. This is the guerrilla warfare of the soul in a crazy realm.
Yeah,
it's happening. It's beautiful.
Yeah,
and it's going to defy all time and space in the flesh. That's where my money's going.
Yeah.
Let's see. So, what else you got? You got another point? You want to do some? Hey, the people that were on before you.
Yeah.
Not only are they a twin soul poet, that's their name, twin soul poets, beautiful couple, beautiful. But they do what do you call it? Poetry slam. You ever done
that? Not exactly. I've been to some open mics.
Yeah.
But there's so much beautiful energy in that.
So is poetry slam freestyle or is it memorized or both?
I think it can be both. You know me, I always have to, I forget each poem, so I have to read it off of my cell phone. But like you have a great memory.
No. Not very good. No. I don't have much of anything left anymore. I'm waiting for the regeneration activations to occur.
I do have, I wrote this one. This was interesting. I loved how this came in. The quote is, "Within the flames of purification, the eternal light of the spirit breaks through the vaulted chamber of the heart and braves its immortal unfurling." That's the opening. And then the poem that came in with that is, "Restless child, close your eyes and hand me the pieces of your heart that no longer feel, so that I may offer them up to the twilight. Sleep for now. Soon your pain will wear the crown of nightfall. In the end, everything finds its way back. One day, these pieces will rise into stars. In no time and all at once, you will remember that the spirit is woven of love, and that beneath all of this ache, a fathomless light had only craved to gaze deep into its very own eyes."
Dude, you're going deep. You're doing the deep diving. But there's something about the depth of emotion, which you see in art, even in stuff that somebody might do themselves. There's so much. There's so much code and activating energies in an expression that somebody pulls from the depths of pain and grief.
Yeah.
It's like you're paying homage to it. It's like you're paying homage to the darkness. You worship the darkness as you do the light.
Yeah.
That is a true warrior that finds that space, because the only reason that we wouldn't is because we're smarter than that what is.
Yeah.
Well, let me run this into the universe for you. And I've been with you long enough. God, goddess, and then you end up with a fishbowl of a realm called Earth, where everything's upside down. But
I like how you put that. It's like paying homage, and it is, because the deeper we go, Gabriella has a poem where, and this is me paraphrasing, hers is far more eloquent, but it's this movement into deeper states of stillness, right? So when we talk about leveling up, right, again, is it denotes outside, but this leveling up is really a metaphor for the depth of stillness that we continue to breach inside. And as we move deeper into the Aeonian, the everlasting, the light of infinitude starts to break surface and move into the heart. And so I do think that, yeah, the tribute to the darkness is the moment we start to realize that the darkness is the only way back to the light of ourselves. And I think it's in that we begin to honor in a holy and sacred and ineffable way, truly. Yeah.
man, it's the goal, dude. I don't know if it's going to remain this way, but when I connected with you during that 5 to 6 days of purging and this beautiful nightmare, but it was, but I'd say this too about the pool of potential and opportunity, where new levels of alignment are being hit with integrity and love and courage and maturity. But I would say that when we do this work that it is in the depths, and it can be other ways than grief. It can be on a long held belief system that you have to let go of. And but if we do it, there are meta-human things coming to us, right? Like there are skills and abilities and higher sensitivities that are opened up as we go into and pierce deeply and deeper into the heart. That's where it all starts and stops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Oh, so, somebody said something here a second ago. I've got to give them their due. I think it was Violet. Here it is. If you don't go to it, it'll come to you. So there's always that one, right? No matter what. Let go or be dragged.
Yeah, that's the one I just thought of when you said that. And the other one you and I've talked about a lot is the famous Greek aphorism, know thyself.
Yeah.
Right. And it's interesting how these aphorisms or these sutras, they carry the voice of God.
Yeah.
So like in knowing thyself is in knowing ourselves, in remembering in this deeper state, we're going to meet the world anew.
Yeah.
And that's how it's even, I was talking to a few friends, and sometimes, depending on what perspective we're, analyzing the world from, it's like some people are like hopeless right now. Like, this is bad. Look at all the division. Look at all the schismatics, like the perpetuating of racial and political and religious schisms. Like people become transfixed, right? But it's like the more you fall into yourself, all you see is really you start to see yourself a little more, right? And something Israel and I do with each other is we catch ourselves, especially if we're disagreeing with something. And we've both done this today, on his birthday, 14 years of sacred friendship, brotherhood, is throughout our relationship, we would, if I did something and I'd say, this didn't feel good, I don't like this. He's like, you do this to me this way, and this way. Right. And we were like constantly like, and I'm like, and it would always open me up. And it was like literally like me meeting myself for the first time. And I think just something that I just really see, something that I feel emerging, although it feels a little silent at times, and it's definitely a lot quieter than what we're seeing with the death of the ego, the collective ego, but it's just this innate compassion where we're really holding space for creation. I read something beautiful, and it was like Eckhart Tolle. He was talking about how when you're perceiving through the optics of the ego, if you walk through a forest and you see trees that have fallen, you call those dead trees. But if you're looking at those trees that have fallen through the spirit, you see the irrigation of soil, plants, and animals. And you see that death's an illusion. Right? So it's like, is that tree dead? Is it gone forever? Or is that tree going to move into the earth? And is it going to reinvent itself? Right? It's going to have another iteration, and it's going to feed, and it's going to manifest in a multitude of ways.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I just think that was something I thought was interesting.
That is cool. Did you like that Rumi video I sent you about the grave?
Man. Yeah, can you quote that again? Because I don't remember off the top of my head that one quote you told me.
I don't know if I have it. Let me see.
Something about the grave being a door.
I don't know. It was pretty wicked, though. It was pretty wicked.
I saw that. You sent me that. I watched that.
Oh, here it is.
And
I got it.
Okay.
Well, what'd you watch?
And then I also watched an excellent video that you posted that I would recommend for everybody.
What was it?
I don't know who it was, what his name was, but he was basically, he was like just talking about like the Socratic way, and
yeah, man, that's a good clip. Guy Ritchie.
That video was amazing.
Yeah, Guy Ritchie. You must. I think the name of it's a Guy Ritchie Joe Rogan clip, JRE clips, and it's you must be the master of your kingdom.
Yeah,
it's very cool. Yeah. So this one, Yeah, I only wrote three lines out of it. Remember, let's see. I've got to see which one goes first. Remember, a grave is only a curtain for the paradise behind. When the grave locks you up, that is when your soul is freed. Why should you doubt the rise of the seed human? That's Rumi. Man, he's balls, dude.
Yeah, he's.
I mean,
great.
seriously, seriously, there's something beyond what we can see. It's coming into focus now. But with Rumi and things like Rumi has like exploded in the last 10 years. I mean, everybody knows Rumi.
I think he is like the most searched poet of all times.
He's incredible. They all are. All those Sufi poets.
Oh, yeah.
They had it down. They had something going on. So, man, do you want to do a freestyle poetry slam?
I'm still working on my freestyle, but I could close with one more, and maybe you have both of us could read one more poem. This is tears that hold melodies, cherished memories, and painful goodbyes. Last night, in my dreams, I met you all. What an honor it has been to create a mosaic sculpted of heartache and love, fighting to die while alive, so that we may breathe with the nobility of an open heart. It was all perfect, and like the one candle that rests at the center of the ocean, you were, are, and will always be the light that illuminated my night.
So anytime that we're going to be on the stage together doing poetry back and forth, remind me to go first. Because after you go, I'm not doing anymore. No, man, that was good. That was solid, bro. That was solid. That was real nice. Yeah. Have you how many have you done, do you think, or started, let me say, since in the last 3 months? Have you been writing a lot?
Yeah, almost all day, every day, just coming through. Yeah, it's the poetry and the tears. They speak the unutterable for sure.
Yeah, poetry, man. Poetry is a frequency. It has a physical presence, that we refer to, but it's a frequency. It's a beautiful frequency. It's sacred. I love you, man. I love you, Israel. El Toro. Mi amor. I love you.
I love you, brother. And I just wanted to thank you and all my friends. And I wanted to thank, I've tried my best to get back to everyone that's written in, like private message but I just want to thank everyone for all the love and all the prayers throughout the entire process. Like before my mom transitioned, after, like, it was just really, it was really truly touching. And the Soulogy family is special. So I just want to thank everyone and I love you guys. I'll see you soon, brother.
Thanks, Michael. And before we go, I just wanted to offer this gift to you.
Yes.
Before.
Oh no. He's bringing back his impersonation.
Before.
I want to hear your poem.
No,
because you're one of my favorite poets.
It's your it's your you've given us huge activation, huge download, huge code. There's so much code coming through the stuff that you read to us, and it carries Israel, and it carries mercy, and it carries your father and your mother, and so much power. One thing about these cells of souls that come together, there's like a giant sucking sound as you head towards them, because it's pulling in energy to transmute and transform. So, thank you for everything you shared with us and coming out and spending time with us. But I love you all over there, and I can't wait to see you. So
I love you, brother. I'll see you soon.
All right. Peace out.
Bye.